two places in time. In July, the theme was This is the Way, which is a Mandalorian reference for anyone who gets it. And to recap on a really, really high level, of course, if you want to go more in depth, I recommend rewatching those videos that I put out on my YouTube channel. But the kind of one-liner is by the end of the month, as the time of recording, sometime in and around now, we should have a much better understanding of the lessons of everything that was transpiring, in particular this month, and the actions that we took. What's the context for them? What does it mean? What was the trial and error that we were experiencing over the last several weeks? And what exactly should we be doing next? So this is the way is the indicator of, well, now that I've gone through all of this, what I actually should be doing next is blank. You fill in that blank. So maybe at the time of me recording this for students who are in the class in real time and those who are watching within the first couple days of August, it could be a really nice check-in to just ask yourself that question, like, what did I learn in July? And what does this mean for where I know deep down I should be going and what steps I should be taking to get there? So for August, this is the theme. We have Jazzercise in a blender. I will throw that in the chat in case anyone wants to see it. And this will be explained more later. Here, we're going to be talking about ingresses involving Venus, Mercury, and Mars. We're going to get those ingresses out of the way so we understand what each of the chapters are that are beginning. They're happening in rapid succession, so they're all starting like back to back to back to back. And so there's going to feel like there's a significant pivot and turning point where a lot of things are new very suddenly. Venus, which is the planet of love and harmony, and that is entering Libra, its domicile, aka a place that it's happy, it wants to do a jig. It's also the ruler of Taurus, so it has two different times where it gets to be especially happy, sandwiched between ones where it is not happy. The reason that this is particularly notable, as a recording, Venus is still in Virgo, and it hates being there. It's highly, highly dysfunctional. So, and the same thing happens with Taurus, where the sign immediately before in Aries, it hates to be there too. So then it's like, oh, I'm so miserable. And the relief, the joy, the excitement of then switching into the sign of its domicile. And again, we have two of them for this planet. It's like, wow, extra relief. So that Virgo transit began on July 9th. And this ingress, which is happening on August 6th in the afternoon Eastern time. This is going to feel like, well, I guess this works. Breath of fresh air, because Libra's an air sign, breath of fresh air. And this will bring some support for companionship that's more in touch, more connected, maybe more affectionate, keeping the peace. So Libra is all about balance, fairness, justice. And so we're wanting to level things out, level those scales, have people getting along. We also may be more inclined to dabble with artistry or interior design. We're looking at our surroundings. How can we beautify them? How can we not just express? It's not so much about expressing ourselves necessarily, channeling that creative expression through the world around us, the space around us, through the relationships that we have. And hopefully, we also will have more aligned decision making. This should be a great help given that we have just experienced the Mercury retrograde, which I feel like was a particularly trying time for people, even though Mercury isn't necessarily innately unhappy in Cancer. It seemed very, very rough for a lot of people. That was the general sentiment that I was seeing. And I felt like it was kind of rough for me too, but I also have a Cancer rising, so that's a whole other story. So it's like our mind and our thoughts and our processing was so disrupted. And Mercury is also going to be changing signs actually twice in August. So that mental framework is shifting. But as far as any decisions and processing, anything that we learned from that time in Cancer, hopefully this Venus ingress into Libra will also be super supportive in allowing us to in a different way, see things more clearly, see things from a more relaxed perspective, so we can step back and try to be not just objective, because Libra wants to be objective, but it still wants to consider people as well, which works nicely with all of that work that we just did with Venus in Cancer, which is also a very people-oriented sign. The last Venus in Libra ingress, for a comparison, to give you a bit of a flavor of what it might look like for you, that was October 13th through November 6th of last year. And this ingress in particular is going to be, as I mentioned before, August 6th through September 10th. So for both of them, we're in and around a month's period of time, which tends to be the average for Venus. But what's especially notable here is that next transit, this one that we're talking about, of Venus in Libra, is going to be the last normal one of the year, because then Venus is going to have a retrograde in Scorpio, which is going to last for several months and maybe not be necessarily a pleasant experience. So we've had a lot of periods in 2026 where Venus is really happy, really unhappy, really happy, really unhappy, over and over and over again. So you may have been feeling a bit of those ups and downs, especially if Venus is a big player in your chart or a chart ruler in particular. All right, so talking about Mercury. This is a planet of communication, and it enters Leo 3 days after exiting its retrograde post shadow. And that is also 3 days after the Venus ingress. So those are happening all in succession at the same time. July 23rd, Mercury stationed direct in Cancer, and then it took until the 9th of August for it to fully exit that post shadow. So that whole period of time, we were winding down from that intense peak energy of the retrograde itself and getting back to normal, and then moving through the remaining degree points. And then we have the ingress where it moves into the new sign. We are drastically shifting our focus because we are moving from Mercury in Cancer into Mercury in Leo, which means self-confidence boost. It's being very prideful or maybe even boastful in our speech. We are thinking about being in the spotlight or thinking about the spotlight in general and seeking out those creative outlets. So as I just mentioned before, Venus is in Libra, very creative signs. We have two signatures happening within days of each other that both last several weeks, where we're really tapping into that creative energy, that expression, and trying to be lighter and more joyful. Leo is a very, very playful sign. And it's also a loyal sign. So that's another element where we are considering the relationships. Libra is like, let's have people get along. Leo is like, let's have fun together. And also, like, we're in a crew. So we have those two pieces where we're really trying to connect in close bonds and we're trying to express and maybe even not necessarily thinking outside of the box. That would be more of an Aquarius, but we're just thinking very creatively and in hopefully a lighter way, rather than all the heaviness that we were experiencing with Mercury in Cancer, and specifically Mercury in Cancer retrograde. The last time that we had Mercury moving through Leo was June 26th through September 2nd of 2025. That is a long period of time, which means there was a retrograde. Some of you may remember this because it wasn't all that long ago. One of the things that we were working on a lot during July was our action plan. Like, what's going on? What are we doing? Having trial and error. And that's because there was a lot going on with Mars last month. This month, it's a little bit more simple, but the thing that is notable is where we want to act, where we are feeling really passionate and driven this month changes because it is moving into Cancer. And unfortunately for us, unlike the last two personal planets who were excited about where they were going, it's like a really upswing, uplifting energy shift. Mars is going into Cancer, which is where Mercury just was, and Mars hates being in Cancer. It's in its fall. And it is very, very dysfunctional, very unhappy. And that's going to have a direct impact on how motivated we are feeling, how productive we are. And this is another thing, we were talking about this at the beginning of class before we started. When we're trying to look ahead at the calendar and saying, okay, what's happening with astrology? How can we plan? Well, this type of energy is not one that's necessarily going to make that easy for us. It might be hard, regardless of what plan we come up with. Once we get into this energy portal, we might just not be feeling it. It might not work. It might stall out because we're just like, ugh, kind of not like mopey, but just feeling stuck, feeling just really, really stuck and frustrated. This is happening on August 11th. So between the 6th and the 11th, we have all three personal planets changing signs. We could be more interested, hopefully, in developing emotional bonds. Again, this is on the positive side. Let's look for the higher vibration. It doesn't have to be all bad. And we do know with what is happening with Venus, what is happening with Mercury, they're also focusing on those tight relationships. So Mars going into Cancer could do some of the same thing. That could be a tag team. So lots of looking at building, nurturing the tightest bonds that we have in August. And also for Mars and Cancer, this could mean that we are, again, taking some sort of action to support maybe what's going on at home, anything that's happening in the household or with family dynamics. And again, is this good? Is this bad? It depends on the thing that you choose to do. It depends on if it's impulsive or not. What you decide to do to your house or to or with your family, or thinking about your ancestry, or like, could you be looking into it? Maybe, but maybe you're also like more aggressive about it. So it's going to depend totally on your chart and your expression and where you are at. If this leans, basically how far on the scale it leans towards dysfunction. And our hope here, also in the positive, is maybe, if anything, what we just try to take away from the Mars in Cancer experience is to try to take actions as much as possible to listen to our intuition, even if it means that we end up hesitating. Because Cancer, yes, it is a cardinal sign, but it's not necessarily just going to rush out and do something impulsive, which is one of the reasons why Mars is not delighted to be there. But if we are just saying, well, the thing I'm going to do this month, hello, Mars, I'm going to appease you. I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. Don't worry. But the thing I'm going to choose to do is continue to engage with my intuition. Try to just follow my gut. Regardless of what's happening, I'm just going to keep trying to follow my gut over and over again. Maybe it appeases Mars enough. It helps us if the only choice that we keep making over and over again is to just listen to that voice, our spirit team, whatever it is for you, then yeah, if we're not feeling as motivated or impassioned, or we're feeling stuck or slow in other ways, it could just help us a little bit more in trusting the process, knowing that maybe things are going to move a little bit slower, but there will be progress as the seeds are planted, as we have the whole eclipse season and all that fun stuff going on, that we can, in quieter, subtler, maybe slower ways, still make progress, and we'll be able to capitalize on them. Like once Mars does what Mercury is currently doing, once Mars goes into Leo, it's going to be a whole different story. It's going to be, yay, I'm in a fire sign, and I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be expressive. So trying to embrace the action of going inward, the action of connecting, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if we're feeling a little bit restless, just trying to listen to that as much as possible, because there will be a release point when Mars goes into Leo. Last time that we had Mars in Cancer was September 4th through November 3rd of 2024, which was a pre-shadow and retrograde. And then January 6th through April 18th of 2025, which also had a retrograde. So there was a split, and that's because the Mars retrograde toggled between Cancer and Leo. So it ingressed out and then went back in. So we had a pretty extended period of time. I think it was like 5 months or something from start to finish before Mars actually got out of Cancer permanently. And this was a pretty rough time for anyone that happens to remember this. So I am glad, at least in this go around, there's no retrograde. So we're going to get through it way faster and get to Leo much sooner. And That is because this transit will only last 7 weeks. So 7 weeks versus 5 months. Like, I'll take it. Even if it doesn't necessarily feel super wonderful, at least we have a more expedited timeline so we can hopefully get the lessons learned, take the small steps, the small intentional steps that we need, and then be able to do something with it on the other side and yeah, not feel stuck forever like we had before. Right after this Mars ingress, like literally the next day, we have the first eclipse. So the reason that this matters is because while that eclipse is not happening in Cancer, the moon rules Cancer, which intrinsically means that there is a connection. Anytime where we are seeing a planet in motion, there is a draw, there is a pull to the different areas in our life that it rules, into those different themes. So the fact that we are going to have Cancer uh, housing, if you will, Mars already, and then we're having the activation, which is happening just a sign over. There's a lot going on there because you do have the energetics. So the moon is like looking for Cancer. It's drawing that in, but then when you have the actual eclipse point and where Mars is, that's what is called an inversion. So because they're in the signs right next to each other, they can't see each other. So it's like they're being influenced, but they don't really know what the other arm is doing. And so it adds this other layer of what we would expect for specifically this transit as feelings of dysfunction. And then we have this big energy portal with an activation going on. And then one of the main players, aka the moon, is disconnected from its place of home, and like its home is kind of being messed with. It's like there's an unwanted guest there. And then the sun is in Leo because it's Leo season. And from that standpoint, the sun is happy, but the moon is really unhappy. So there's a lot that's going on in August that is flavored with joy and creative expression. And then there's just some little notes of bitterness and like, oh, I don't really love this happening at the same time. It's not overwhelming, but there's just these splashes. It's like you're having a fruity drink and then there's a weird aftertaste. It's probably like a good analogy summarizing what's going on in August. Mercury, again, talking about Mercury for a second time, at the end of the month, so a few weeks later, Mercury enters Virgo on the 25th, where it is exalted and in domicile. So it is very, very happy to be there. So again, Mercury is having a much better month in the grand scheme, especially versus the journey that it had in July, where it was just not really functioning very well. Not the worst, but not functioning very well. Retrograde, so not operating optimally. And then it goes into Leo and it's like, oh, what a breath of fresh air. This is so exciting. This is so fun. Let's have fun. And then it goes into Virgo, one of the signs that it rules, and it's super efficient, super functional. Like, let's get stuff done. Let's think about things in an analytical way. Let's organize. Let's be really clear, really intentional. Maybe let's start thinking about our health more all month long, really most of August. We were thinking about those closest relationships and how we were kind of getting along. And suddenly we have this turn right towards the end as we're preparing to go into September, where it's like, oh, well, how's my body doing? How's my wellness doing? Do I need to do any more work to improve? Is there anything I should be aware of that I've missed? Any fine print or details that I haven't caught? So it's really setting us up for exiting the eclipse season, exiting this busy month, and starting to think about some new concepts. So we just get that a little bit early because Venus and Mars are not going to change until we get into September. So Mercury, as the fastest moving planet closest to the sun, is just going to get there a little bit quicker. So our mind is going to get to the next phase. It's ready to move on before, I wouldn't say the heart, but before our sense of peace, our expression, and before our action to back up those thoughts is ready to move into the next sign. And the last time that we had Mercury in Virgo was September 2nd through 18th of 2025. As you can see, that was a very, very short period of time because sometimes Mercury moves super fast. This go around, it is there until September 10th, which I did mention earlier. That's the same date that Venus is changing signs. So we're having this sequence within August where it's like every couple days, one of the personal planets changes signs. But then on September 10th, we have two changing signs the same exact day. So whatever is intense now, we're going to get hit with another round of it again. And in fact, both chapters are switching at once. So that could make things easier. Okay, let's just rip off the Band-Aid. And it also could make it maybe a little bit harder to decipher, well, which planet was doing what, like what was the influence. For the first eclipse in August, in very, very short time, we have Mars moving and then it's entering the sign. Like there's the symbolic activation that is going on. And with Mercury, it is entering the sign where that eclipse is happening. And then when we get to the second eclipse at the end of the month, because when you have the two eclipses, one of them means the sun and the moon are in the same sign, the other one means they're in the opposite signs. It's not possible for like Mercury to go half the zodiac. So it ends up actually being in opposition for the second one. So Mercury is activating in different ways the two eclipses in the month, which means it's especially of note what is going on with Mercury's movement. So first question that you could ask yourself, where am I now? Next question. What am I ready to release with love? How can I take myself less seriously? Where could I laugh more? Next, which tough lesson could become my greatest gift? How can I rediscover my spark? Just two more questions. What's being left unsaid? And lastly, why am I resistant to boundaries? There's a lot to cover, and in part it's because we have a lot of movement. We have 4 ingresses across the 3 personal planets, and that means we're going to be checked a lot. We're going to have questions that are coming up. We're going to have feelings. We're going to have discomfort. We're going to have the opportunity to check in on what all of this means. So I mentioned at the top, if you want to do a reflection right at the beginning of August on your July, based on that July theme. There are also some questions here that you could just piggyback on and ask at the beginning of August to reflect on your July, just to give yourself like the milestone and the checkpoint if you do the comparison of right before the month is starting and right as the month is ending. But you also can sprinkle them throughout, and I think really either method is effective. But yeah, it seems like there's going to be some good gems and some juicy details that we can get from these prompts. And then I just did want to close out this forecast with a channeled message that came through just to put a button on everything here. Let's gather round in a circle, hold hands, and hold tight. Take a deep breath in and feel the warm hum of connection to those around you, to the fabric of our collective existence, and to the power and authentic passion within you. This month, we remember our creative essence, what elicits joy, and where we tend to put up walls. If you do nothing else, act always in step with your intuitive nudges and self-expression of delight.